Hello, I'm Simon Whistler, you're watching Today I Found Out, and in the video today we're answering a viewer question because Darren W. asks, are there any records of someone paying with a briefcase full of money, or is this just a Hollywood trope? Just before we get started, I do want to say that this video is made possible by Cheddar. You might know Cheddar from their live news network or their great product reviews on Facebook, but now they're making weekly YouTube videos, and if you like Today I Found Out, you will love their videos. They recently made a video about how the lottery is getting much harder to win, so you're much less likely to have a briefcase full of money. Nice segue. You can check out their video through the link in the description below. And let's get started. A briefcase full of cash is a trope so common that even TV Tropes, a website dedicated to cataloging cinematic cliches, requests that users only mention exceptions, parodies, and subversions. While you'd expect something so ridiculous to be an invention, or at least an exaggeration of Hollywood, it appears that paying for things with a big old stack of cash stored conveniently inside of a briefcase is more common than you might think. In fact, during our research, we very easily found many dozens of documented examples of exactly this thing happening, some of the more interesting of which we're about to share with you. While you'd kind of expect exchanges involving briefcases full of cash to be nearly exclusively done by seedy underworld types, that's not really the case. For example, in 2013, George Clooney, George Clooney gathered up 14 of his closest friends and presented each one of them with a briefcase containing exactly $1 million in cash. The star explained to his stunned friends that the money was a gift to thank them for their support when he was just a struggling actor, reportedly stating, "Listen, I want you guys to know how much you've meant to me, and how much you mean to me in my life. I came to LA. I slept on your couch. I'm so fortunate in my life to have all of you, and I couldn't be where I am today without all of you. So it was really important to me that while we're still here, all together, that I give back. I know we've been through some hard times. Some of you are still going through it. You don't have to worry about your kids. You don't have to worry about school. You don't have to worry about paying your mortgage." According to one of the recipients of the money, Randy Gerber, Clooney went as far as to pay all associated taxes on the gift so that each man got to keep 100% of the cash for themselves. Apparently, George Clooney is just that nice of a guy. On the other end of the financial spectrum, you have Lug McCall, a student at the University of Utah, who in 2014 paid a $2,000 tuition bill with $2,001 bills stored inside of a briefcase. The act was to protest the soaring cost of higher education in the United States. Sticking with protesting, there are many examples of people taking advantage of the US law that dictates that any debt, regardless of size, that the debtor attempts to settle with cold, hard cash cannot be refused. The specific law states, United States coins and currency, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of Federal Reserve banks and national banks, are legal tender for all debts, public charges, taxes, and dues. Thus, if you have a particularly huge bill and wish to pay in relatively small denominations just to annoy or otherwise waste the time of a business, a briefcase full of $1 bills or perhaps a barrel full of pennies is a great way to go about it. Although just as effective at annoying people is that time a man paid a $137 traffic ticket with individual dollar bills folded into origami pigs stored inside of donut boxes. And speaking of policemen and speaking of donuts, why not watch our video on what started the cops eating donuts stereotype? Find a link below. Alright, so getting back to briefcases full of money, in the early 1990s, Black Sabbath guitarist Tony Iommi was arrested in Sacramento for non-payment of child support while the band was on tour. After being informed that his bail had been set at $75,000, the band's manager sent a lawyer with a briefcase containing that amount of money in cash to the jail in order to expedite his release so the night's show didn't have to be cancelled. An individual known for making extensive use of briefcases full of money is controversial boxing promoter Don King. Specifically, it's claimed that King would often use just this tactic to get young boxers to take him on as a manager. At the sight of such a large amount of cash, this would invariably make the boxer less hesitant to sign a contract with sometimes wildly unfavorable terms for the young athlete. On one occasion, King reportedly even managed to convince the late great Muhammad Ali to drop a court case by having an associate deliver a briefcase containing $50,000 in cash to the boxer. Despite being owed over $1 million after King shortchanged him on his winnings in a 1980 boxing match, Ali agreed to drop a case he would likely have easily won upon laying eyes on the money. Needless to say, Ali's lawyers, who weren't around when the briefcase of cash was delivered, were not too pleased when they found out about what had happened. In the world of soccer, this tactic was reportedly used unsuccessfully to convince an at the time 15-year-old John Obi Mikel to sign with a team he failed to recall during a later interview with The Sun. Mikel claims he was initially tempted to sign the contract on the spot thanks to the briefcase full of cash, but wisely changed his mind and decided to delay and think it over. Moving on to other forms of entertainment, briefcases full of cash have commonly featured as prizes in game shows, and on one notable occasion in 2005, a documentary called Reversal of Fortune. In regards to the latter, the subject of the documentary, a homeless man called Ted Rodriguez, was gifted $100,000 by producers just to see what he'd do with the money. Instead of just giving the money to him, they instead decided that it would look better for the cameras to hide it inside the briefcase, which they arranged for Rodriguez to find while dumpster diving. Understandably, Rodriguez initially wanted nothing to do with the money, believing it was linked to organized crime, and had to be assured by the producers that the money really was from them and it was his to keep. For anyone interested in what happened next, we've actually talked about that documentary in a previous video. Alright, so now let's move on to the world of business. In 2013, to drum up interest in a crowdfunding website he'd recently invested in called fundanything.com, Donald Trump gave away 3 briefcases full of cash to random people from the lobby of Trump Tower in New York. The publicity stunt, which was widely condemned as an offensive charade by the media, featured Trump handing out both large checks as well as the aforementioned 3 briefcases full of cash. Certain people were also invited to reach into an aquarium full of money to grab as much as they could hold after sharing sob stories with the gathered press. Trump officially cut ties with the site less than a year later. Speaking of people flaunting their wealth, boxer Floyd Mayweather Jr. has been known to travel carrying suitcases and duffel bags filled with sometimes millions of dollars in cash, famously publicly stating, "When I travel, I don't pack clothes, I only pack Benjamins." Such extravagant displays of wealth are a trademark of the boxer, with Mayweather reportedly having a standing arrangement with his bank to have huge sums of money in cash periodically delivered to his palatial home, with the primary purpose being to facilitate flaunting his fabulous wealth. Alright, so shifting focus to the world of organized crime and corruption. Briefcases full of cash are frequently alluded to in both first-hand accounts from gangsters as well as official police reports. For example, a sting operation conducted by Brazilian authorities in 2017 found that corrupt politicians throughout the country were routinely bribed by criminals with briefcases full of money. Similar accusations have also been leveled at Russian oligarchs who've been accused of bribing officials with literal briefcases full of cash. Similarly, while scanning through autobiographical accounts of underworld dealings from criminals, we found multiple references to briefcases full of cash being used to do everything from paying off corrupt officials to settling debts and fostering new criminal alliances. As for why the briefcase seems to be the go-to method for transporting bundles of cash, the answer seems to be quite simply that a nondescript briefcase, hold-all, or bag is a fairly innocuous item that generally doesn't arouse suspicion when carried in public. And specifically with regard to briefcases, unlike backpacks and other kinds of bag, they often come with combination locks as a standard feature. Combine this with the fact that they're lightweight, solidly built, somewhat weatherproof, and invariably of a fairly uniform size, and a briefcase seems like an obvious choice for moving large amounts of cash. It's also worth noting that some briefcases, like those produced by Hollywood favorite Zero Halliburton, appearing in over 200 movies and TV shows to date as the go-to way to store bundles of cash on camera, they are specifically designed to carry valuables and as a result possess features like padding and a hardened exterior, making them even more suitable for carrying bundles of cash. So, to conclude, the idea of people paying for things with a briefcase full of money isn't just an invention of Hollywood and is something that actually happens with surprising regularity in the real world. Now it seems like the only thing we need to cover in an upcoming video is whether a criminal has robbed a bank and carried away sacks with a large dollar sign printed on the side. Just before we get into the bonus facts for today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Cheddar. As I mentioned at the start of this video, you might know Cheddar from their live news network and their product reviews on Facebook. But now they're making YouTube videos as well. And if you like our stuff, you will like their stuff as well. They recently published a video which I thought fits in quite nicely with today's video, and it's all about how it's become much harder to win the lottery and why that is. I'm going to link over to the video in the description below, but before we get into the bonus facts, just let me play you a few seconds from their video because I think it's really good. I think you should check it out. So let me just play that for you now.
In 2010, the odds of winning the Mega Millions jackpot was 1 in 175 million. Not great, right? Well, with revisions to 2013, those odds moved to 1 in 258 million. That means that each ticket is 1/3 less likely to win the jackpot. In October of 2017, Mega Millions changed the odds again. Now each ticket has a 1 in 302 million chance of winning the jackpot.
And alright, so I hope you liked that preview. Full video is available through a link in the description below, and let's get into those bonus facts. There is actually at least one confirmed case from history of a criminal committing a crime while holding a sack with a $sign on it. According to a police report obtained by the Smoking Gun in April of 2015, a man called David Eli Lengerfelter robbed a Subway restaurant in Washington and upon being apprehended was found to have stored all of his ill-gotten gains inside of a small white bag he'd hastily drawn a $sign on the outside of. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, do subscribe to our channel. We got brand new videos just like this every day of the week. And as always, thank you for watching.